Hi everybody, this is Nick Vogelzang from Vogelzang Law saying hello, doing our weekly check-in on Ask the Lawyer section. I hope you're enjoying yourself today. It's one of our first warm days in Chicago, as you can probably see behind me. It feels like 60 degrees after some of the weather we've endured here. So what are we doing? We've got some cool things going on tonight. Is Tickled Pink for Bright Pink. They do early detection of breast and ovarian cancer, and they're raising money tonight. We're going to a really cool fundraiser at Rockwell and somewhere. It's on the northwest side. But my wife and I will be there, and I'm sure many other people from the firm and from Cancer Wellness, of course. So we've got that to look forward to, and then upcoming we have the Fight for Air Climb March 10th, and that's sponsored by the American Lung Association at the Presidential Towers. You have the option of climbing all 4 towers, although you don't have to. Of course, you can climb 1, 2, 3, 4, or none. I won't be there. I'm going to be in Beverly Hills. I've got a speaking engagement with other lawyers talking about things that are going on in the litigation regarding asbestos and what we've been fighting about in the courts these days. I shouldn't say fighting, but debating and some of the issues that come up in the litigation. So in addition to that, we have a scholarship that's still out there for anyone to apply to. You can head to our website at vogelzanglaw.com. And for any of you bright young students, you're looking for some money for that way too expensive tuition, please apply. We'll be reading all those applications, looking forward to sorting through them and picking a winner, so that'll be great. And then also one other thing, if you're watching this video, there should be a link next to it for our newsletter, which is coming out in March. We send out a newsletter once a month, giving you the updates of the firm and what's been happening with us. Just to give you a video update of it, actually, we were in court last week. We set a couple good cases for trial. Mr. Johnson is living with mesothelioma, and he had a talc exposure, actually a lot of talc exposures over his career, and we set his case for trial in November of 2019. And then we also asked the court to set Mr. Gray's case for trial. He also has mesothelioma and spent most of his career as an insulator, wrapping pipes and other vessels with asbestos insulation. So he was heavily exposed, and we are looking forward to doing his deposition in a couple of weeks. So today, one of the questions that we're talking about is, what is asbestosis? And is that different from mesothelioma? And how is it involved in the litigation? So to give you a brief rundown, asbestosis is one of the first diseases that was ever discovered to be related to asbestos. So it was given a pretty simple name of asbestosis, so it's just the word asbestos with an IS at the end. And it was actually a term coined in Germany in the 1920s, and they knew about it all throughout Europe in the 1930s. And in fact, companies were compensating widows who had loved ones that had died from asbestosis as early as 1933. So the significance of that is that knowing that disease gave the companies that knew that people could get asbestosis, means that they also knew that there was an ability to warn the end user and say, hey, if you use this product, you might get this disease. Back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, they weren't sure that asbestos caused cancer. And today, most of our cases are from cancer from asbestos, but we also do represent and see people who have asbestosis, which is not cancerous, but can be a very difficult disease. And I'll give you a brief rundown of it. So here goes, the 2-minute rundown of what asbestosis is. If you picture your lungs like an upside down tree, and you think of each leaf on the tree as an alveolar sac that converts the oxygen to the blood. This is on a microscopic level, so each leaf of the tree, there's millions of those leaves. And if you breathe in a cloud of asbestos, so you see it's dusty in front of you, you take a breath. Well, you're looking at about 5 million fibers of asbestos fibers. So when you breathe that in, those fibers on a microscopic level go down into the tree and into the leaves, and they stick in each leaf in that alveolar sac like a little metal spear, and they sit in there. And then over time, scar tissue builds up, again on the microscopic level. So millions of sacs, millions of fibers, the tissue builds up, and eventually it becomes hard to breathe. So you become short of breath, and severe asbestosis, you can die from it, and it becomes similar to breathing through a straw. And I don't see nearly as many asbestosis cases as we used to, because a lot of men and women that were heavily exposed to asbestos simply aren't around anymore. But today I met with somebody who has asbestosis and will be filing his case because of his heavy exposures early on in the 70s. So that's what asbestosis is, and it's just as compensable, meaning it's a case that will be paid in Illinois if you have damages, and those damages are clear because you're short of breath, you can't exercise like you used to, and it's a chronic disease, meaning you can't get rid of it. There's no medication you can take to reverse the process of the scarring of your lungs. And many times, unfortunately, it also is a precursor, meaning something that indicates what is yet to come of lung cancer or mesothelioma. So, not to get too deep in the weeds on you, but if you were to get asbestosis and you sued somebody for it or sued companies and they paid you, you would want to make sure that you don't sign a release that says, should I get mesothelioma or lung cancer down the road, I'm not limited to this amount of damages. But I don't want to get too deep on this segment. It's a Friday afternoon. I just try to give you a thumbnail sketch of what asbestosis is and how it relates to the litigation. So that, I think, pretty much sums it up. It's hard because I can't do it back and forth. And so we are leading up to a webinar eventually in a couple months where I'll be able to answer questions from the audience directly, and I think that would be really helpful, and I definitely look forward to that. But for right now, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great Friday afternoon and a good precursor to your weekend. And we'll look for you next week on the same segment. Thanks a lot for listening and watching. Have a good weekend.